Hello, Tom.
Hello.
I have not heard from Ernest, but usually he's on first, so I don't know if he missed the memo or had something else going on. My
I just
friend,
got a message from him, so he's asking
oh,
for having a meeting today. It said,
yes,
"Are
so
we
he's in
meeting?"
a different on a different thread for some reason. Did I get the wrong
Okay.
Ernest?
We will be patient.
And my former boss, Anish, was actually one of our first Datocracy interviewees before you
Uh-huh.
expressed interest in joining us. We'll see if he makes it or not. He wanted to be on
Okay.
the invite. I think that may have been actually before I worked for him when Ernest and I were first brainstorming Datocracy. When this was, and we started as a podcast, I think right around 2020, actually. Yeah, way back in the day. It's actually quite impressive that we've been sustaining these monthly video calls for such a long time. Um, cool. Anyway, so you've had more than the usual number of new books. Usually you average about one a week. I think you hit more than that.
Uh, more like one a week, actually, about 13 books in 13 weeks. Yeah. I'm looking for my next inspiration. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm having fun. And
Mhm.
some of my
Well,
friends are having fun with the content. So
yeah, well,
so
still seeing if I can tempt you or taunt you into doing one on rice. We'll see how things go. You want to start by you want to pull up probe and we can at least start talking about that.
yes.
You want to bring it up or should I?
Yes, no, I'll bring it up. Let's see, share and keynote and recent and probe and share. There's probe. Okay, probe is up.
All right.
That's me. If you didn't recognize me, trying to look like Trump. Haha.
Oh, I thought you're supposed to be a firefighter. Is that the point?
Uh,
That was
no,
one of the more bizarre. Out
yeah,
of yeah, it's so weird. Our level of what counts as bizarre keeps getting reset. It's like, okay, no, that's just ordinary bizarre anymore. That's not yet
yeah, right.
apocalyptic levels of bizarre. But
Anyway, my
yes,
stocks are going up today. That's good.
yeah.
Not my American stocks. So,
Are
but
there Norwegian stocks? Sorry, that's a cheap shot.
yeah, no, they're doing quite well. I got Norwegian, but I've got European international stocks in space and materials.
Mm.
And then I've got Tesla and Nvidia as my
Ah,
investments. I have a little one in Norsk Hydro, which is the uh, where they made heavy water during the Second World War and tried to keep it from the Nazis. That's where they're
ah.
claim to fame, the hydro. And one of my old clients, as it turns out, in the old days. But yeah, but
Any new
anyway, they're up.
clients?
No, I don't. No, I don't go for any clients today, right? I mean, I'm absolutely non-commercial, retired,
Okay, well, not commercial
voluntary.
clients, but like any nation states or advocacy organizations hitting you up these days?
Oh, right. Uh, there's a lot going on with in the U.S. with diverse, smaller things, but no nation states. No, no, they're at the level of schools and museums, put it that way.
Right.
Um,
Just wondering if any Gulf states decided that they needed some clearer thinking about the world they live in.
right. No, I never get any contact with them, so don't know why, but it's okay. I never had a warm feeling towards them either. they don't treat their own citizens very nicely.
That was where was I seeing this? There's a discussion of Machiavelli, um, how in the West he's seen as very cold and evil, or the English speaking world, whereas in the continent it's more he's very pragmatic and even almost humanistic in his think in terms of like Machiavelli is like you need to keep your population happy enough that they don't kill you, and that's just good rulership. That's
Right,
not morality. That's just, as opposed to, treating them as your private whorehouse for exploitation.
right. Let's
And it's an
see.
interesting, and maybe this is where we're at here, is that one of the long running
People are in,
debates.
Ernest, two people came in. I
Oh my goodness, we got a crowd.
I didn't see it myself because I had my slides up here, but
Nish, welcome back. I
Thank
was
you.
saying, Tom, you're actually OG because Ernest and I interviewed you even before we met Tom.
hello,
Oh,
Anish.
interesting. Okay. Hello, good to see you again. Tom is partially the reason that I'm here because I'm working on what I call extremely high level languages for LLMs, and I realized that P language was important in that
Oh,
regard
good. Well,
for
sure.
helping them. Because anyway, I won't go too far into it, but I'm very interested in the line between syntax and semantics, and LLMs are very good at syntax and very poor at semantics, and maybe P language can help with that. But back to reality.
It's
Yeah,
pronounced
we can
Planguage, just to be
discuss that.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
precise.
okay. Fair enough. Language. Okay,
Oh,
very good.
as in everybody. Yeah, you don't care, no, but it's planning and language conjugated.
Okay,
So
that helps. Thank you.
language, yeah, and P language. I don't know. That has some negative connotations. So
Well, a polynomial is negative in that sense, but sure.
polynomial.
I
Okay.
was thinking bodily functions, but we don't have to go there.
But that's
Um, I'll
PE
say,
languages.
let's not go there. Let's talk about probe instead. It's like, wait, no, that's the worst segue possible. But but we will go with it anyway. Tom, in case you don't know, Anish, Tom literally writes a book a week. And his book of
Sweet
the week
Jesus.
is probe. So maybe we can take 15 minutes and do the
Yeah.
probe, and then we can take some questions on language. And if we have time, we'll deal with rice.
Okay. I'll do a 15-minute.
Right. Hi, Ernest,
Let's
by the way.
yeah. Irons. Okay.
And just so you know, this is being recorded for YouTube. So
Okay.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
this is
Okay.
last week's book, done a few days ago. Um, the basis here is everybody keeps on saying we need to teach more critical thinking or critical system thinking at universities. And I one of the things I observed was I couldn't find that they were referring to any particular syllabus, just critical thinking, and then they're gone. So, and my methods contain a lot of critical thinking tools. So I thought, well, I'll write that up, and if somebody wants to say we could teach that as critical thinking, that's fine. So it's sort of my contribution to what could be critical thinking. And then I like short one syllable words. So rather than critical system thinking, I found probe, and I'm fanatic on making an acronym on everything. So we have language, rigorous, objective, belief, evaluation. Okay, anyway, but the main point is to put some things on the table. There are the contents, if you can absorb the page in 1 second, but we're just going to scan through here in the 15 minutes allocated. And uh,
Is there a link, Tom? Did they sorry, I apologize. Did the link go out of your email?
sorry, there is a link, but we didn't put it in yet.
Okay.
Actually, there's the link, the QR and the tiny URL .com probe PDF free. Does that help?
It
That's like the
does.
way to give it to you.
Sure.
Maybe Ernest, you could put that in the chat.
I'll do that now.
Fine, thanks. Okay, so back we go. Yeah, so basic idea is I'm going to exploit things that I know about and master my planning language to give tools for critical thinking and critical systems thinking. That's the bottom line there. I bumped into this by accident. I found that X gives a lot of nice stories about great people doing good thinking. So here is President Obama describing how he does critical thinking. And I thought in today's world, that was interesting to know. So I plugged that in, his process. The mindset of probe is basically that we have specific tools. We don't just think well or something like that, and we could teach these tools to people, and they could perhaps think better. Or maybe somebody says, hey, I've got a whole bunch of stuff that beats all of that, forget it. And that'd be interesting to know about if anybody does. I also bumped into this. Here's my friend Elon and his new friend Pushkar Renade, who is CEO of Intel. And for some weird reason, this guy in survival mode decided to partner with Musk and his new Terafab thing. So that's that meeting, the new factory. But here's something I sort of knew, but I'd never had spelled out black and white. And I thought it was really neat. Elon runs Tesla on 3-sentence emails, and he says, what's the problem? What's the root cause as opposed to the cause? And what's your proposed solution to the root cause? And I thought that is beautiful in all its simplicity. I like it. And and my Tesla stock just went up tremendously today, obviously confirming that this works or that people think the war is over or something like that. I then looked up critical in my little onboard Mac dictionary and got this involving the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. And I thought that I like that. I'll stick with that. I then said, now, what is then critical thinking? And I looked and said, I'll reuse that. That's good too. And then I took all the key words like objective, analysis, evaluation, judgment, and I defined them. And from those, I defined even further things. And then I asked Claude to sort of organize the thinking, which he's pretty good at, from this one page. Now we're going to see a lot more detail. Well, this is really my top-down look at the whole thing. So then I did the principles of critical analysis. Here's the repeat of the analysis definition. And I won't, obviously, my 15 minutes go through all these. That'd take 15 minutes. But I used about 15 or 20 minutes to derive from my head the principles of critical analysis. And I've reread them a few times and I still like them, so they ain't too bad. Here's just a little extra slide to talk about critical things. In this case, I took Christopher Alexander's sentence, asked AI to remind us how many ambiguous words he uses and how many potential semantic interpretations there are from a single sentence. And bad critical thinking starts with nice streams of words, which you find everywhere, like in strategic thinking and everybody else's thinking, user stories, you name it. I discovered in a talk I'm actually going to hold two places now. My ends and means talk. I can give I'll give the link to that. I've got all the slides ready. But I discovered that two well-known philosophers were fairly fanatic on defining terms before they launched into their philosophical talks. And two other philosophers, Marx and Dewey, were of such a mind. So I thought I'll hold them up as examples. I do believe you need to define and agree on the defined definition before you launch into anything. And people don't do that. They just launch in assuming everybody shares their opinion about what agile means or something like that. And of course, they don't. I asked AI to compare my way of thinking with the philosophers. So if you want to, and I come out fairly nicely there, but that's just because the AI is kind to whoever's asking, I get.
Marx was a great, we can talk about this there. Marx was a great equivocator of terminology, actually. And the Austrian economist took him to task for this. So he-
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in going deeper in that, but I was he happens to be my mother's hero, and he's of course I studied economics as
oh, nice.
on among other things, so you bump into him.
For
Yeah,
what it's worth, I think it's apropos of the train of thought you're developing, but von Mises's critique of Marx is that, or no, it's Hayek's critique of Marx. He basically says that everything abominable that the collective needs to do, he attributes to the state, and everything positive he attributes to like what he calls the people or the collective. And Hayek points out these are actually the same entity, but through language games, he's able to, foist problems onto one
Yeah. There's
and
a
depend on
that's a
semantic.
thesis I have is, and we'll see if we get into this, is that by precisely defining certain terms, we don't eliminate ambiguity, we push it to the edges of the system. And so we'll see how that plays out.
okay. Yeah. This guy also bumped into other people know him as the guy who taught Tim Robbins everything and that kind of thing. But he makes the point better than the quotation isn't really good enough. He talked about planning like an adult, and he actually means being very precise in your requirements. And he says the power of then asking for that very precise definition is amazing. You're more likely to get it if you define it precisely and then ask for it, and you'll get precisely what you define. And I sort of like that, but I need to do something about planning like an adult isn't a good enough repetition of what he actually said. Define what you want. No, so here's the evaluation principles, which obviously not going to have time to go through in detail, but I did them in about 15 or 20 minutes. I also wrote very carefully in the presenter notes that all principles are written without the help of AI. You have to be very careful about people suspecting you of deriving these things from AI. So I did it, original manual. Anyway, and there's that definition of evaluation, and then my way of looking at it is a set of principles. Here's a little bit more detail. Here's me using Planguage to look at some sub strategies done on a weekly basis and look at a whole bunch of what I now call aspects of them. And I have a whole book I just wrote but this month on aspects, which you'll find in the references to the latest book, the split book. So, principles of judgment, again, the definition of judgment, my principles, and then an example of judgment. In this case, we're passing judgment on which quality requirements we prefer based on figuring out what percentage of 100 stakeholders would be happy if we reached the goals. So that's an example of using language for judgment purposes. Then we
Can
have
you go back to
clarity.
that table? Is this like a JND? What is this?
This is our
Pardon me?
ATF. Is this your impact estimation
I'm
table?
trying to understand, sorry, that the
So,
percentage of
yeah,
stakeholders that
got
would be
it.
satisfied.
Yeah. So this is language
Right.
using language terms like scale, meter, tolerable goal, and ambition and attack. So it's pure language, normal language for stating a requirement. Then I've added on and asked my AI friend what percentage of 100 stakeholders, in this case, EU medical products and services, would be impacted or dead pleased if we delivered this particular goal.
I
And
see.
it's at 95%. So that
I see.
says, I would judge that I'd better worry about this or I'm going to have an awful lot of unhappy stakeholders, as opposed to life cycle assessment, which only 5% care about. But I'm just giving this as a quickie example, which I had lying around on ways of systematically passing judgment using Planguage and AI.
And actually,
Okay.
one point I want to call out here, because I think this is underappreciated, is that you explicitly specify the meter in what is the metric. In blockchain terms, we consider that the oracle, right? What is the system that we assume exists that allows us to judge whether this is being done correctly? And to me, that's even more important than the actual numbers, is that you have baked into this what I would consider the actual semantics. How does this actually cash out in the real world?
And I'd like to point out that I have a book written this year called Scale, and you can look it up in the references, and if remind me if you can't find it. But it goes into extreme depth about the difference between what is a scale and what is a meter. And I've discovered a lot of people are not clear on that distinction and muddle and mix them up, as I did when I was younger. And it's really important to get the distinction.
Do you want to give us the quick definition of the difference?
Yeah, scale is short for scale of measure. It's like miles per hour, and meter is the speedometer. Scale is the volt. Meter is the voltmeter.
The units you measure in versus the actual concrete system that does the measuring.
Yes, but I also am an extremist. I say that scale in itself, without any form of measurement, is useful for
At least you're talking about the
communicating
same thing. Yeah.
more clearly. Yeah, I mean, meter, the fact, if I say to you, I want to get the moon and back in 1 second, I've communicated with a scale of measure something that you know is impossible, and you know there's no point in trying to measure it since it never will be done. It's outside the state of the art. I can communicate state of the art ideas, for example, with a scale. I don't need a meter. So a meter is an add-on which is related to the scale, and we use it on some occasions for some purposes, but the core idea is the scale of measure. And again, I wrote a whole book on it called Scale. So I went through it today. I'm dead pleased with what I managed to write there. Anyway, I'm looking at my watch, and I've used my 15 minutes. Do I get 5 more to sort of round up?
We'll give you 5 more to round up.
Thanks. Okay. So clarification and principles of it, and then some examples of clarification. So here's clarification of the idea of which Christopher Alexander said could not be easily measured in his book on patterns or building.
You familiar with the phrase design patterns in Christopher Alexander, right, Anish?
Yeah, I've got a whole book called Patterns.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And but he said maintainability of a building or house was something that could not easily be quantified. So I said you're very wrong, and it's you're misleading all your 1 million readers. So I'm using a pattern which I had earlier.
To be fair, it was not easy to quantify back in the day before Planguage. So
yeah. Anyway, I defined maintainability, and here's another thing he couldn't deal with was individual solitude in a house, and then I of course did that using a pattern, and here's that in more detail. Okay. So chapter 8, better formulation. And I have all kinds of standards in my competitive engineering book, which lead people into better formulation. As Intel famously has spent 25 or so, actually 30 years, and taught over 25,000 engineers a 2-day course on my Planguage. And here's an example of getting 50 times better in requirements quality as published by Intel. So solution suggestions, there's the solution suggestion idea. There are the principles. And here is a simple idea of, here are some solution suggestions for COVID planning in Norway. Actually, here are some values and some costs. And here's an impact estimation table giving you a visual understanding of how good the different things are in multiple dimensions. Then there's the idea if you really want critical systems thinking, you have to have a model. And so I start talking about models, and picking up from an older lecture I have about modeling, I pick up my critique about models, like they're pretty bad at quantifying qualities and costs. And I have 10 principles of models, which we'll go through. And then we get towards the end. Then I have a whole thing I did 5 years ago for a friend of mine, Chris Dale. He said, I want to understand how you think, Tom, write it down. So I wrote down Gilb think, and then I've resurrected it just now with a new editing to say that Gilb think is one critical thinking pattern, and this is how I do it. A nice picture of Al, huh? You didn't know he had shorts and sandals. And then there's Schopenhauer and all kinds of other cute little things, but I'm going to scan through it intentionally and sort of get to the end symbolically. So ending here, Keith had a neat idea. How did he was one of the original PayPal mafia together with Musk to put him in context, but he's an investor. And he was asked in this interview, how do you decide what to invest in? And he said, actually, I look and if they are extremely rapid at doing change and do it extremely frequently, in other words, what I call Evo, I invest in them. If they don't, I don't. I thought that was interesting. And then I just have some other comparable models. It's kind of cute to find the laws of thought by Mr. George Boole of Boolean fame. So I compared Boole and me numerically just for fun, and then looking at 40 other different methods of critical thinking. And yesterday I put in a case study of my thinking on changing the economics of India, which might interest you. So there's Tom in his Indian costume, in case you wondered. Okay, so end.
And all right.
Not too
Thank you,
bad.
Tom.
20
It's a
minutes.
good,
I did it within 20.
yeah, it's a good brain dump and a good drinking from the fire hose to get Anish up to speed on life with Tom. Did you want to take 5 minutes, Anish, and ask him any questions about this or Planguage in general?
I had some observations. So I think that the scale meter, it's not a dichotomy, but the scale meter relationship, I think that that is dimensions and facts in data warehouses. I think that's true. So the dimension is a dimension, it's descriptive metadata, and the fact is essentially an observation at a point in time. So if you're describing a product, it's primarily composed of dimensions,
Right.
but a
I think
sale
more
is the
precisely,
fact.
it's whatever system that generates the fact, I think, is closer to his meter.
Whatever
Yeah.
system
No, but
generates the
you're on
fact
a
is
good track there.
okay.
That's I think that's roughly right. I don't have I mean, I didn't get all the details, but it sounds roughly right. Yeah.
And then I have a question. So, I mean, well, you made the $1 million sentence, which is, some things are AI and some are not, which I guess my question is, where do you, what in this was created by AI and what was written by people? So you're very careful to write the principles by hand. Where does that, what in your opinion is safe for AI to write?
Okay. See, can you see my screen still? Am I still screen sharing?
Yes, it's not terribly legible because the font is very
No,
small, but
yeah. Okay. Better
okay,
print.
there you go. Yeah, sure.
I use AI to generate all these tables these days, and I think it's very safe. In fact, it is clearly superior to what human beings can do, even the best of them trained well. And there's a reason for that, which is this trained on so much stuff. So I used to do all this manually. The tables of goals and strategies and all that. other stuff. But now I would generate with AI and modify with AI.
I see. So
Long,
you proofread this, but let me understand. So you give it a spec for. I'm interested in exactly this. This is not about me. I'm interested in exactly this problem of what the line. So we can define semantics and syntax very clearly. I'm really interested, and this frontier is moving in the line of what AI can be trusted to do and what it can't. So what you gave a specification for this table, which is like,
yes.
enumerate XYZ techniques or XYZ thinkers in these dimensions, and it fills out the table. Is that right?
Yep.
I
And the
see.
prompts are either, if they're not in the slide, they're actually in the presenter notes for these slides.
Interesting.
So I always and they're always simple and obvious, So let's
Yeah.
see, do
And
we
let's be
have
honest, one of the reasons this works so well is that the alternative is a swag, right? Is that I, as a human being, I'm guessing or filling in for a lot of these things. So these are not these are
Oh, what AIs are like swagger, like they're
right. So
the
yeah,
infamous swaggers.
yeah,
Okay.
but yeah. In this case, I mean, the principles are the rigorous human input, and then that you want to think deeply about, and then you know the one time I filled out a table, it's like, okay, I'm just making up wild guesses as I go along to fill this thing out, and based on my own biases and context, and that kind of behavior. I often say that one of my virtues is I do so many things so badly that the bar to make AI do it better is remarkably low. And acknowledging that and taking advantage of that is one of the ways that you can decide when to trust an AI, is acknowledge the things that you already do kind of badly.
Interesting. I'll post this archive paper called "How LLMs." So I interesting. I'm interested. This paper I've been thinking about for over a week is I'll just read the two sentences that matter. The ways in which LLMs, this is Google research and multiple foundation models. The ways in which LLMs alter text are similar across model types and persist even when LLMs are prompted to make minimal edits. Participants in our long story short, LLMs, even if told only to fix grammar, always change the meaning. Almost always. So there's just something I don't know what that says about these tables generated by specs, and I'll post this paper, but I concerned is not the right word. I'm suspicious.
Say meaning. Do you mean semantic drift?
Yes. Yeah. Well, okay, we don't even need the word drift. It's like, so the line between syntax and semantics in an LLM world is not clear because grammar is a syntactical set of corrections, but the semantics come out altered.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that line is not clear to them. And the paper has some interesting ways of how they get the LM to kind of cough up its findings,
Right.
or how they do the controls are interesting.
When I generate illustrations, I notice this, that, can generally not spell at all. And when you try to get it to respell, it changes everything else. So, I mean, that's a chaotic world. This world of generating these ideas at tables seems to work very well with all the well-known LLMs that I use. That is,
Yeah. Oh,
it
I'm not saying those two things are related, and I don't think that LM's changing the meaning throws your tables under the bus. I'm just thinking through like what the lines are
right.
and what we can trust LMs
Okay.
for
Well,
and
here's one
what we
level.
can.
Um, I've been teaching and doing this for about 50 years. So I know the manual process very well. I know what it takes people to do this stuff. And what I found is, let's be very um, humble here. It's an incredibly good way of getting a first draft for human consumption and deliberation.
Mm, mm.
Because
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
5 minutes you can get it for free, and I would take days of work to get there with manual means.
I hear you. I hear you. There's clearly something here that works and something that doesn't, and that's I'm talking about in the LLM. And again,
Yes,
I don't think we'll answer in this call what that is. Yeah, but very interesting. Thank you.
pleasure.
All right, so let's try so Tom, I will play you against yourself since you didn't take up your homework to critique my idea from last time.
No,
I decided.
sorry. I was busy writing books is my excuse.
Yeah, that's always your excuse. So, but not
Tom,
to fear.
with your vaunted history, surely writing a book to disprove Ernie must be high on your list of
He's
priorities.
yeah. I mean, yeah, accusing him of being too nice would be a cruel thing to accuse him of. So we won't accuse him of that. But never fear. If you let me go ahead and change,
Yes,
is
go ahead.
we have the Gilbot.
Yes,
So I don't know if you've seen the Gilbot,
which is
Anish.
trained on about 20 or so of my books.
So let's find out how well it semantically drifts.
Okay. Yeah,
Oh,
hey.
sorry.
What
Just
he's
for context, sorry. This you're calling this the Gilbot. This is trained on, well, trained. This is contexted, probably not trained on Tom's books. Yeah.
It is explicit. Yeah. A friend of
Okay,
mine,
got
John
it. Glib. It's
Aldershot
not glib.
from,
It's Gilb. Okay, interesting.
yeah, John Aldershot from Nevada, he uh, trained. He built the Gilbot, and he fed my books in about 20. He's fed some of the newest ones in too. So it's
I see.
explicitly trained to know my stuff.
Oh, now, and is it fine-tuned or is it ragged or do we
It's
know?
rough and ready, quick and dirty.
Okay.
It's like the
Not a lot of
standard
fun.
GBT thing that
It's
it's
probably
easy to do with
ragged. It's probably
ChatGPT.
ragged.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so it says, and I think this feels on brand for you. It says, I like the way you're framing the problem in terms of
Can you fix your
morality
screen
and
share, Ernie? Your screen
oh
share.
sure,
Oh, sorry. Maybe I've. Okay. No, that was me. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. Uh, Tom's repeated emphasis on multiple stakeholders, multiple critical values, explicit rules, and feedback-based dilution. That seems pretty on brand for you, Tom, I would say. Complaining
Yeah.
that it's not engineered enough, it's muddies thinking, it's too focused on having like one big idea. Uh, that feels pretty on brand. Um, and you wanted to be more evolutionary and not declarative.
Yep.
So I think that's the punchline here. It's promising as a design intuition, compatible with his distrust of centralized coordination, but not yet credible engineering. It's close to a stimulating theory or pattern language than an operational planning method. That feels consistent with what probably not too far off from where your at least initial emotional reaction was when I presented this last month. Is that fair?
Sounds good. I'm just picking up a power cord.
Yeah.
What's the proposition, Ernie? Sorry.
Oh,
What
sorry.
did we
I
evaluate?
didn't. So the thing that came up before is do I have this? Let me see if I can find a quite summary here. Let's do it on screen here. Summarize the original Rice thesis very concisely. And this is actually relevant to some of the stuff I'm doing in my day job, but no, it probably, okay. So it was supposed to be, we may have lost it. So the idea is that the way to resolve conflict is you need a shared reality, multiple interpreters, clear commit and tracked execution. That was kind of the Rice stack. And this has the idea is that in the past, we had an executive or a priest or the emperor who would embody, this is what is true, this is what it means, this is what we're going to do, and this is how well it worked. And that was efficient in a world of low information compared to the alternatives, but very thin in terms of human value. And so the idea is that in this age of abundant data and abundant AI, we can decouple those pieces to allow groups to have thick culture locally, but then have this arbitration mechanism I call RICE, as where we all agree on the data set. We can have multiple people using their own brains or their own AI assistants to interpret what it means out of that common reality substrate. And then we can come together and say, okay, let's sort this out and make a decision. And then let's make sure that the way that this is implemented tracks and feeds back into the shared reality substrate. So that was the.
Oh, sorry. You don't close the loop though. So I'm following this. So I guess a couple. Well, oh, sweet Jesus. Okay, can you scroll up to the right? Okay, I guess it's there again. So you you put it together. You take it apart with the interpreters. The commitment puts it back together again. Does this punt on the hard problem of how you get to a commitment from multiple interpretations?
So the it's vague about it, and I would argue this is precisely where Planguage is most valuable. Is once you have a common basis of reality and divergent opinions, that's, I think, precisely where language precision, impact estimation tables, stakeholder analysis, and all these things are very useful inputs. The picture I have is like, imagine a board meeting, right? And you have the decider sitting at the table. You have a big stack of context that everyone's agreed to read beforehand. And you have brilliant advisors sitting quietly, wasting their time at the edges of the room, ready to be on call. And the goal is that, we're tasked to decide this thing. We are the deciders. We are operating on this reality, but I can ask one of the experts to speak publicly and share that with the room. I could call one of my advisors to come and say, what does this mean? What's the background? What's the context? Go research this thing. And then at the end of the day, the humans in the room make the decision based on all of those pieces of information.
I see.
And that's where I think it's precisely in context like that a rigorous formal system is like, okay, this is the analysis that we've done and the estimations of likelihood. That's I think exactly the gap that Planguage fills, is not forcing a decision, but providing a context derived from data and interpretation that allows humans to make an optimal decision and be accountable for it.
I would just say that for like to apply this, having these are end states, like the rice are end states, right? But then the edges that get you from one to the other, I'm very interested in. I think it's underspecified.
Oh, absolutely. It is underspecified. It was just trying to
Okay.
figure out like what is the world that I want to live in and being clear about that. And if you say, well, of course, that's obvious, that's the easy part, that's 90% of what I was trying to do. And it's like, okay, yeah, given that, now do we figure out how to actually do it? But it is a fundamentally different way of segmenting the things that need to be decided upon that I wanted to call out.
Okay.
And anyway, do you like Tom? Do you agree with that reframing? You still there? You're muted.
I think so, but I really have to have it in writing in front of me, read it, and then agree or disagree. But yeah,
All right.
but I didn't hear anything.
Welcome to the new world, folks. Tom agrees with his AI. Do not ask any questions.
The yeah, so I have not yet succeeded in triggering Tom enough that he's going to get into a fight with his own AI and sort out what he actually believes.
That would be great.
That is I succeeded with that with Alexei, by the way. That is the most hilarious thing that happened. Is a friend of ours. where I made a comment based on a conversation with AI, and he stayed up all night to try and prove me wrong, and
Oh
found
yeah,
out that
I
he couldn't.
remember.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
you guys are both doomed because you can't use AI to prove anything, but
well, no, but
we'll come back to that.
no. The thing is that but this is the point that I'm making here, which is really important. Is that in a vacuum you cannot. Okay, but if you agree, this is the set of data we are working from, and that any evidence, any claims must be analyzed relative to that data set, then there is a convergence that happens where if you have multiple competing interpretations using Planguage directly or using it implicitly through an NL. And I think this is the thing that is underappreciated about Planguage. It's that let's assume semantic drift is a good way to describe how LLMs go wrong. They just make shit up. Having
That's different.
Well, no, I think it's the same thing. Is that
Drifting is you started in one location and you're off the centroid. Making things up, well, there's hallucination, there's mirages. Sorry. Okay, anyway, those are different
I would
things.
argue those are all different forms of semantic drift,
Okay, continue. I'm listening.
right? And so the way that we solve that in software is we make sure that the unit tests, or at least we make sure that the integration test is real. And if you can keep the integration test real, then there may be a lot, it is not impossible. It becomes increasingly expensive to sustain deviation from reality. Is that this is the blockchain thesis. The most efficient system to converge on is actually the shared truth. And deviation from that gets more and more expensive. And so under pressure, the system will converge towards reality. And if you're trying to prove that something is false, you have to end up working extra, extra hard, and that ends up wearing you down. That's basically where is the argument. Not that the system is, but if you have bounds, that and once someone makes a good argument, if it's solid and evidence based, it becomes increasingly expensive to deny it. That's really the claim.
Interesting. Why do you, sorry, I don't know how to help. I'll ask one question and then you can direct me. But you said disproof is hard. Isn't disproof the easiest thing? You need one counterexample.
No, because it's like if someone the truth, the thing that is a claim that is accurate becomes increasingly expensive to deny. That's the point.
And that's, sorry, that's a productivity dynamic?
That is
Or it's
a
just a,
feature of having a closed epistemic system.
oh, okay. I'm okay, okay. I neither agree nor disagree. I understand what you're trying to say.
Okay. And I think and poor Ernest has been sitting here for a long time. I'm sure if we've lost him entirely or if he has any thoughts, but this is what I would consider the bull case for AI. We should not trust AI, but we could use AI to show us where we shouldn't trust ourselves by forcing us to accept unpleasant reality and giving us a way to argue more honestly. Not as a replacement for humans, but almost as a mirror to help us see where we're lying to ourselves. Because Ernest is a notorious hater of AI. Is that too strong of a term?
Good. Then I'm a lover of Ernest.
But he has grudgingly conceded there's a few
to hate on
times.
AI, but I'll let him do it first.
It's not only skepticism, it's the level of control that the owners exert over it. And the willingness of people to ignore that's what bothers me so much.
Yeah. And I think that what's interesting, and we'll see how this plays out, because I'm actually curious your thoughts on this, Nish. It feels like the open source, locally hosted models hit a tipping point with Gemma 4. Have you been following that at all?
I am. and there is a very specific bound. The name will come to me in a second here. The short of everything is that if you can train with that, more data beats more parameters every single time.
Mhm.
So it's unclear if the foundation model companies will continue to break away in performance because now the ratio of data to parameters is getting so thin. But so there is this question of like general question of local versus cloud and public versus private models. Like that's that's very
Right.
much being debated.
And I think what's interesting, and this is going back to something that Ernest and I have argued about since the very beginning. Ernest talked about a world where, one of his passions is we colonize space and everyone has their own asteroid or their own spaceship and they can have their own culture and we don't need, and we want to have everything be open source and fully maintainable so we can have these self-sustaining systems. Is that a fair characterization of where we started, Ernest?
Yeah.
And one of the challenges, I said, well, the problem is that if you've got all these little ships who are self things, if some evil Darth Vader comes up and builds an empire, how do you keep them from taking over? Literally, the first the most charitable interpretation of the first trilogy of Star Wars. And the issue is you need to find a way for ad hoc groups to coordinate to resist being taken over. And that's kind of where I look at it as, okay, there's always going to be cloud AI and big companies in some level. The goal is that I can have a productive life and be effective without needing to play their game. Because like right now, if you wanted to be found on the internet, at least 3 years ago, if you wanted to be found on the internet, you had to play Google's game or there was no way to be discovered. Now there's non-Google search systems built for AI that in principle could allow you a different route. Maybe not yet. The point is like, okay, I can't get away from using Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini now for everything, basically. But I could imagine with a month of work, I could probably automate 40% of the use cases that I use cloud AI for with a system running locally on my machine, maybe 60%. And when that happens, I am only partly beholden to the big guys. And it's fairly easy to imagine a world where my most critical decisions, getting back to your original claim, Tom, there was a phrase that I think it was Chesterton who said the most valuable skill in a king is not expertise, it's judgment. When you have a bunch of really smart, really knowledgeable advisors, knowing which one to trust for which problem is the hard part. And that doesn't require enormous intelligence. It doesn't require deep knowledge of everything. It requires this skill that Chesterton called judgment, which is what I think Probe was about. And I can easily imagine a world where I have a local AI agent that knows my context and my values, that is fully open source, fully trained and trusted by me or the community, not by the big guys. And I can use that to say, okay, given all these cloud models, which have come up with brilliant suggestions, which of these actually aligns with my values and my vision? Kind of the way I had Gilbot critique my AI generated pitch. And that feels like a plausible world we could get to this year.
Agreed.
Two things. So one, these are called chinchilla laws. So then it's based on a paper where
The
they
chinchilla
show
scaling laws.
chinchilla scaling correctly. And again, that again is this point that data is more important than parameters. I'll make so I'm highly so I agree that your world of the 60 to 70% is possible. I'm highly skeptical of the quality of that world. One thing, so first of all, does everyone understand Jan LeCun's principal critique of LMs?
That they don't have a world model.
Yeah, that's actually important, and that's very related to Tom's work, right? They
Yeah,
don't
we
have a
discussed
scale
that
or
a
a
year or
meter
two
of any
ago.
kind. Okay, right. So they don't have a world model. They can't predict, and so what you see is a lot of semantic, a lot of guessing and stabbing in the dark. That's what LMs do. This smells like a this, and then you get the statistical emissions that are, in that space, neighbor that are near to that in the embedding space, period. Okay.
Yeah, okay, we'll let you finish.
Well, so I guess my point is that that cannot be called thinking. It's guessing.
Oh yeah,
It's very educated
yeah,
guessing. Hang on, let me
yeah,
finish the thought.
yeah.
But so I think where this goes, by the way, is that whether the assist is a proper model, I think LeCun's view is that we will need some kind. He's heavy on vision, and so there needs to be a model. And he always talks about prediction, right? So like again, imagine a physicist without equations. That's an LM, right? So all of this to say, the LM will need formal tools to assist it in its proof and line of reasoning because its line of reasoning is so suggestible. And this relates to Ernest's problem. Like LMs are there's this term biddability, right? Some dog breeds are more biddable than others, right? That they would to do your bidding.
BIDD?
BIDDAB, so as in do your bidding, right?
Yeah.
So they're extremely biddable, and that's why the handlers matter so much. Like, and I think that's what Ernest is saying is that AI is extremely biddable. Its handlers. You're going to get this way or that way answer.
And worse that we have to trust the breeders.
Sorry, the breeders and handlers aren't different in my
I know.
knowledge.
Like the problem is
Okay.
right now the companies that are the handlers are also the breeders, and we have to trust them for both.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, look, the early days of LMs were more interesting in some sense because everyone was interested in jailbreaks, and you could kind of get them. Like I'm calling them jailbreaks, but they're essentially prompt engineering, right? So,
Yeah.
okay. But all of this to say again, like I think where this goes, and I think where Planguage comes in, and I don't know how much we can prove about. I don't know if Planguage actually comes up to a formal language or what, is that this assisted AI is a definite. Okay. So, and here's another way of saying this.
We're
It's
at time,
pretty
by the way, so wrap up.
Oh yeah, the cult of LLM, what LeCun calls, is this overbelief in this single capability, which is statistical emission, to do everything that we call intelligence, and it is not going to happen. So the question is, what are the other functional units, right? And if you think about this as a psychologist or psychiatrist, there are so many areas of the brain. And we can't just take one, the forebrain. I don't know a lot about the brain structure, and say that, oh, yes, this language capability is everything. That's not going to be easy. So the question is, what are these coprocessors and tools like that go alongside LLM crap thinking that make it more closer to real
And the
thinking?
technical term for this, which I just learned yesterday, which will be our next month's topic, is harness engineering, which works really well from the dog metaphor. And that's basically saying taking the CPU of the LLM and wrapping a full operating system around it. And the claim is that that's what we're already doing with agents. We're just doing it badly, and we're just now figuring out how to think about it clearly. So
Right.
I will leave that as a teaser. I'll paste the YouTube video, which introduces the term. Clearly, I failed to provoke Tom badly enough to get him to write a book about me.
No,
so
he's
I'll make
just
that my
smiling.
homework.
He's preparing his
too
revenge
happy.
on
I
you
need him
next week.
angry. That's how
No,
it
no.
gets him to write a book.
Ernie,
All right.
there's
take care.
nothing. There's not an ounce of godliness in that. Sorry, but last thing to your point, this public versus private models thread I just posted on X. It's exactly what you were talking about. I just posted it. Sorry, it's an X thread, and